This week, global politics was jolted by a development few expected. Former US President Donald Trump announced that he intends to grant a full pardon to former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez, who is currently serving a 45-year sentence in the United States for drug trafficking and firearms offenses. The announcement, made through a Truth Social post, immediately sent shockwaves through both Washington and Tegucigalpa, coming at a moment when Honduras is preparing for one of the tightest and most uncertain elections in its recent history. For many observers, Trump's statement was not just about Hernandez. It was a signal with major geopolitical implications, touching everything from US-Latin America relations to the future of America's war on drugs. It marks a rare moment where a presidential statement, rather than diplomatic cables or policy drafts, carries enough weight to alter the mood of an entire region. To understand the magnitude of this moment, you need to know who Hernandez was and what he represented. From 2014 to 2022, Juan Orlando Hernandez was Washington's closest ally in Central America, especially during the Trump administration. He positioned himself as a hardliner against gangs like MS-13, as a defender of counter-narcotics operations, and as a reliable partner in curbing migration flows toward the United States. He appeared at US-backed security events, spoke about building stronger borders, and repeatedly emphasized the need for regional cooperation. But behind that polished facade, prosecutors say something else was happening. In March 2024, a Manhattan jury convicted Hernandez of accepting millions of dollars in bribes from drug traffickers, shielding cocaine shipments headed straight into the United States, and building political power with cartel cash. For the US Department of Justice, this wasn't a small case. It was the dismantling of what prosecutors described as a state-sponsored drug trafficking network. Hernandez maintains he was framed for political reasons. Yet, for many Hondurans, the trial merely confirmed years of rumors that their country had been quietly transformed into a narco state during his presidency. Then came Trump's announcement, a bombshell that instantly jolted both Washington and Tegucigalpa. Trump claimed Hernandez had been treated very harshly and unfairly, and that many respected people believed justice had not been served. Coming from any politician, this would have sparked debate. Coming from a former US president and a man widely expected to shape US policy again, it was explosive. Trump built a significant part of his political persona around being tough on drugs, border crime, and the cartels. He often called the fentanyl crisis a national emergency and pushed for the death penalty for traffickers. Yet now he was offering freedom to the most high-profile drug-convicted foreign leader in modern US history. The timing was equally striking. Honduras goes to the polls this Sunday, and Trump didn't restrict his comments to Hernandez. He openly endorsed conservative candidate Nasry Asfura, warned that US aid might be cut if he loses, and directly tied Washington's support to the victory of a single party, something rarely done so publicly in Latin American politics. This election is not just another regional contest. It is a three-way race filled with tension, rivalry, and ideological clashes that could shape Central America for years. Nasry Asfura of the National Party, the same party that supported Hernandez for nearly a decade, is locked in a statistical tie with two powerful contenders, Rixi Moncada of the ruling leftist Libre Party and Salvador Nasralla of the centrist Liberal Party. The divisions mirror broader tensions within Honduran society, a population split between traditional political elites, leftist reformists, and voters exhausted by corruption scandals. Polls show razor-thin margins, and the streets of Tegucigalpa are already filled with accusations of fraud, fears of vote manipulation, and warnings from international observers. The stakes are enormous. Whoever wins will govern Honduras from 2026 to 2030, a period that will shape the country's battle against poverty, migration outflows, gang violence, and economic stagnation. With the US and the Organization of American States already raising concerns about electoral transparency, even a small dispute on election night could erupt into chaos. Some analysts openly worry that more than one candidate may claim victory, a dangerous scenario in a country with a long history of political crises. Layered on top of this volatile election landscape is another complex geopolitical reality. Honduras's shifting direction under President Xiomara Castro. Elected in 2021, she became the first female president in the country's history and repositioned Honduras toward left-wing alliances across Latin America. Castro strengthened political ties with Cuba and Venezuela, two governments that the Trump administration labeled as dictatorships. She joined regional blocs critical of US influence and embraced rhetoric condemning what she called decades of external meddling. For Republicans in Washington, especially those aligned with Trump, this shift was seen as a dangerous drift away from the US and toward anti-Western alliances. Trump's endorsement of Asfura and his warning that US funding might be at risk can therefore be seen as an attempt to reshape Honduras's trajectory before the next administration even takes office. By tying Hernández's possible pardon to US-Honduras relations, Trump signaled that ideological alignment with Washington's conservatives may once again become a prerequisite for economic cooperation and political support. But the Hernández pardon promise raises larger questions, questions that go beyond politics and into the heart of US credibility. Would a future President Trump really free a foreign leader convicted of enabling tons of cocaine to enter the United States? If so, what would that mean for decades of US anti-drug strategy, which relies heavily on punishing foreign politicians who collaborate with cartels? Allies across Latin America, from Colombia to Guatemala, have long viewed the US justice system as the final barrier against high-level corruption in their countries. A presidential pardon for Hernández could undermine that belief. Prosecutors portrayed Hernández as someone who used the Honduran military, police, and intelligence services to protect traffickers and crush rivals. Allowing him to walk free could embolden other leaders facing corruption allegations, potentially eroding the strongest anti-narcotics deterrent America has. And for communities in Honduras and in the US who suffer from drug-related violence, addiction, and instability, the message would be painful. Political loyalty may outweigh justice. For Honduras itself, the timing could not be more explosive. In a nation where trust in institutions is already thin, Trump's intervention has injected new uncertainty into an already tense environment. Asfura benefits from the endorsement, but it comes with a heavy burden. The implication that his party remains intertwined with Hernández's legacy. Moncada's supporters are using this moment to argue that the National Party is still influenced by narco-politics, while Nasralla's camp is pushing a message of clean governance and generational change. The Honduran public, already skeptical of political elites, is watching closely. For many voters, US involvement has always been a double-edged sword, at times supporting stability, at other times deepening divisions. Now, with Hernández in a US prison and his future unexpectedly entangled with a foreign election, the sense of sovereignty and national dignity has become part of the campaign narrative. And ordinary Hondurans, dealing with economic hardship and rising insecurity, are left wondering whether their democracy is again being shaped by forces far beyond their borders. This story is about more than a pardon, more than an election, and more than Trump himself. It is about a region caught between corruption and reform, between old political loyalties and new ideological currents, between the United States' shifting influence and the growing assertiveness of leaders trying to redefine their place in the world. Whether Hernandez walks free may ultimately depend on who holds power in the White House. Whether Honduras stabilizes or slips into deeper uncertainty will depend on Sunday's vote. But one thing is clear: Central America has once again become a stage where global politics, domestic struggles, and personal ambitions intersect. And for millions of Hondurans dreaming of a more peaceful, accountable, and sovereign future, the outcome of this moment, both in Washington and in Tegucigalpa, could shape the direction of their country for the next decade.